Evening, folks, and it's time for a new update. Today we're going to be talking about converting your 2004 GTO to a 2005-2006 radiator and cooling system. So here we have our car, and here we have the 04 radiator. Now, as you can see, there are no fans in the fan shroud. This is an important step. So the 05-06 harness has a singular plug up here on top, but the 04 has two. Okay, so you can't really modify the motors or swap those out very easily. So the easiest thing to do is just take the whole fan out of the 04, put it in the 05 shroud. The large fan is a direct fit. The smaller fan is not. The reason being is if you can, where's our handy dandy flashlight? Oh, there we go. Thank you, Milwaukee. You see that line on there that I've drawn? That is where those tabs are mounted on the 04 fan. And so you're left with like a half-inch gap that recesses the fan back into the shroud. And what happens is this little lip right here makes contact with the inside of the housing. So all you have to do is take your handy-dandy Dremel, and this blade is what I used, and just skirt it right across the top and trim this little lip off. See that right there? And you just want to make it flush with this. Now you don't want to get into this because then you'll mess with the balance of the fan. Now it doesn't have to be 100% perfect, but you don't want to dip down in here like this, and you'll get to messing things up. Luckily, I didn't have any issues. It went real smoothly. I just right along there. So after you do that, you'll want to take your harness, and these little grooves are designed for the 05-06. They don't exactly fit the harness from those motors, but you can zip tie it up and around and make it work pretty well. Now the reason I changed this, turn this light off, is because as you can see there's all these hoses here. The configuration on the 04 has the return on the passenger side and the draw on the driver's side. And then it's got this metal crossover tube right in front of the motor, or the engine rather, and then this hose comes off of that and goes back up to the water pump. And to me that's just redundant. So to free up a little room in the bottom, I've converted to an 05-06 style, but also aftermarket. As you can see, this one's aftermarket. It came with the car, but I went with an aftermarket Mishimoto radiator, and then got an 05-06 fan shroud off Marketplace. I think both of them together cost me about $220 or something like that. I got a good deal. So let's dive into the car itself. Oh, the other thing that's different is the evap, or I mean not the evap, the vent tube and the reservoir tube are, instead of being on the driver's side of the 04, they're on the passenger side of the 05-06. So if you look here, you can see I'm still using the reservoir from the 04. I don't have a reservoir or an overflow tank to kind of make it like the 05-06, so I've kind of had to Frankenstein it a little bit. As you can see down here, the crossover tube, get my light in there. Crossover tube still exists. I'm using the smaller part just to route the overflow tank back into the original T. So I haven't deleted that yet. I will eventually, but haven't gotten that far yet. The Mishimoto radiator I have came with the hoses included. As you can see there, Mishimoto. But you can see how the return line is on the driver's side now and goes to the top of the water pump, and then the draw is from the passenger side, like so. So all I had to do, the radiator fit in there just fine, and then the fan shroud with this radiator, I had to trim off the lower mounting brackets, like these guys right here. Had to trim that off, but it sits just fine with these top ones. And then you can see the dual plugs from the 04. You can see how I kind of had to zip tie one or two of them to the shroud, but they're all up out of the way, and it works really well. The last thing I had to do, and I'm not sure if this intake is meant specifically for an 04, but when I tried to put it on, there wasn't enough clearance. So as you can see, I had to kind of trim out the inside of this horn. Now, right there, I kind of did a crappy job, but it still works because this connects to the throttle body just fine and doesn't cause any issues. So that's about it. The good thing about still having this reservoir over here is that I'm able to burp the motor pretty easily. I just filled up the radiator and then filled it up the rest of the way from the reservoir, let it run, warm up, no problems at all. It didn't seem to have any air in it and operated just fine. Drove it about 50 miles, no issues whatsoever. And it actually runs a little cooler than that radiator did. I'm not sure if it's got some type of aftermarket thermostat in it. I don't think it does, but the temperature gauge did not come up to even the halfway point. So I'm going to look into that, see if that's an issue, but it didn't act like it was. So hopefully that answers all your questions about swapping this guy out. It's real easy, real straightforward. The hardest part was the fan. The most difficult part was just trying to figure out the fan. And I'm sure there's a couple of write-ups on the forums, but I just kind of had to figure it out for myself. And yeah, everything fits together nicely, works great, no problems, no complaints whatsoever. Eventually I will take that line out, like I said, but it hasn't happened yet. So the next video I'll be making is when I do the two-step with the Lingenfelter relay. I have a MSD two-step. However, I wasn't lucky enough for it to just work straight off my clutch pedal, and I'm not going to run a switch. So we'll do a little write-up or a video on getting that relay stuck in there. And then hopefully soon we'll get these Billy Boat timber cylinders welded up after the cook system, and try to give it a little more unique sound to what everybody else has. You know, I didn't want to go Corsa, I didn't want to go SLP or anything like that. I wanted to be a little unique. So if y'all are interested in GTO modifications, whether it be 04 or 05, 06, I'm going to be doing a lot of changes to this car, which are all applicable to most of these cars that are out there. So please subscribe, leave any questions in the comments. I'm always happy to get to those and give any information that I can. That's what these videos are for. So I hope you guys have a good evening, good luck with your projects, and get busy living.